Can those members of, can the members of AAUW have access to that recording?
100%.
All right, if you just let Lynn know, I'll put it in the newsletter then.
Okay, great. All right, I'm Cynthia Bell, President of the League of Women Voters of the Mid-Hudson Region, and I welcome you to this collaborative virtual event with the AAUW, the American Association of University Women, also a nonpartisan organization. Tonight's speaker is Dave Clegg, a district attorney of Ulster County, speaking about the current status of prosecution, his hurdles, collaborations, and how Ulster County compares with other counties. Also assisting this evening is our League's Vice President, Maura O'Meara, who will be monitoring the chat. We invite everyone to post their comments and questions in the chat. Please mute your microphones unless you are speaking. If you have a question or comment, you can raise your hand or you can use the chat. I'd like to thank our joint member, Vivi Halafsa, for her part in making this interesting event happen. I always begin with our mission statement. I should know it by heart, but I do not. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Maura, I'm going to make you a co-host so you can let people in.
Thank you so much, Cindy.
Pardon?
I said thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, we're so
All
excited.
right. Yeah. Before we get started, I'd like to just take a moment to promote our next virtual event happening this Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. It's called Running for Office, and it's everything you need to know to get started on the process or supporting your candidate for a successful election. So now I'd like to introduce the president of the AAUW, Lynn Gore.
Hello, everyone. Welcome AAUW members and League of Women Voters, and also our guests. We've got quite a good turnout for guests that emailed me the last couple of days. I just want to say that we've been trying to keep doing what we're doing, and we hope to be meeting in person as soon as it's safely possible. We did give some gift certificates to New Paltz and to Kingston high schools for the holidays. We'll be having an event in February. On February, I have all these notes and I should be looking at them. I'm sorry. In February 17th, we're going to have some guest speakers, members that have been selected to talk about some special things they do. And we'll be planning some other activities too. We also have a soup sale coming up since we aren't doing our usual trips. We'll be selling Happy Valley dried soup packages that are I had one for dinner tonight. It's very good, and I'll be getting information out to everybody. I don't have the mission statement in front of me, but our mission is to promote equity for all women and for all people. And we do scholarships for women and girls, and that's our purpose pretty much. And I thank you for doing this tonight. I look forward to hearing from you, David, and I'll turn it over to you now, Cynthia. Thank you.
Okay, it's time to introduce our speaker this evening. Ulster County's District Attorney Dave Clegg. He won the office after a close and contentious race in 2019, running on a platform of criminal justice reform, victim support, and equal justice for all. There has been a great deal of attention around New York State's recent legislative changes, as well as the public's perception of law enforcement in the past couple of years. Those are just a few of the challenges he's faced since he took office. We're still in the midst of a pandemic, and Black Lives Matter inspired activism, among other public concerns to consider, and I'm sure you've had a steep learning curve. So thanks so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. I'll turn the figurative mic over to you now.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Lynn. And thank you to the League of Women Voters and the AAUW for setting this up. It's actually a terrific forum for me as a DA. Some of you may know that I have restrictions in terms of being in any political event and speaking, which I'm not ethically supposed to do. So this is a perfect way in which I can communicate with the community and talk about the adventures we've been on for the last couple of years here at the District Attorney's Office. I think I'll start off just because of the way you led into this, with the hurdles that this office has to face. And the pandemic is primary among them. But the day that or actually 2 weeks before I took office, we had the new discovery law and the new bail law taking effect. And that's had a major effect on law enforcement and on the production of this office. The discovery law, believe it or not, has the most effect in our office. And the discovery law requires that we provide all the evidence in a particular case within 20 days of the arraignment of any defendant. And our evidentiary area has mushroomed to a significant degree with body cams and car cams and cell phone information and all those kinds of things that require us to do literally terabytes of information over a month at a time to provide to defendants. Now, the good side of that is that we have worked extremely hard to get to that point. We weren't ready when I got into office. There'd been nothing set up in this office to deal with that huge amount of work that was coming. Just in this last 6 months, we had the authority with the cooperation and recommendation of the county legislature to add an entire discovery records unit to this office. So we added 7 new individuals and persons who are expert in the area of record management and video recording and paralegals and a new ADA and an investigator, all to try and cooperate with all the law enforcement, the 14 different law enforcement agencies in our county, along with the state police and the sheriff's office, to get all that information as soon as we can and to get it delivered to the defense attorney right away. So that's a monumental process that we've gone through. And right now we've given over 23 terabytes of information through our digitalized system. We have a prosecutor's case management system that we put into place. We are trying to digitalize the entire office. It's the only way we can manage that level of work that we have to do. So that also has been a work in progress in terms of getting every attorney trained on our new prosecutor's management system and to make them familiar with it and to make sure that they're inputting, because if you don't input, we can't output. So we all know the restrictions in that. So we made a great deal of progress, but that was starting off, right? And as one of my ADAs says, what the discovery law did was double the amount of work in each case for our office. Then within a month and a half, a little over a month and a half, we had the pandemic hit. And once the pandemic hit, we had a hiring freeze. And so this office was understaffed at that point and hadn't had the chance to hire new attorneys to fill those vacancies. And then we were frozen in that position for another year, understaffed. And then the courts closed and the grand jury stopped. And still you had 70 to 100 new cases coming into our office every week. So what happened was, when I entered office, the average caseload for the ADAs in this office was between 30 and 40 felony cases for the felony ADAs. Right now, it's well over 100 cases each. And so the pandemic has slowed down everything. The courts finally reopened, but believe it or not, we only have one courtroom in this county where we can socially distance and have a jury trial. So we have one courtroom which we have to share with the civil side of the courthouse. So we are able to do maybe one and not yet 2 trials a month with 1,000+ case felony backlog. So all of that is going on. Those are hurdles. Those are hurdles that we're working through. I have to tell you that the ADAs in my office are working harder than ever. They all deserve the Medal of Honor for going above and beyond the call of duty, and they continue to do so. We weren't fully staffed until the second week in December, a month ago. We are finally fully staffed in a way and taking on this monumental caseload that everybody has, and we'll work through it. It may be 2 years before we finally can break through to a normal caseload. And I'm praying, I'm sure you all are, that this Omicron and the COVID and everything else slows down very quickly and we can get back to normal so that we can all get the work done that we need to do. On the accomplishment side, I want you to know that we have started a number of programs besides establishing this discovery unit, which is really working in a really highly effective way. They're so committed to what they're doing, and they're doing a terrific job, which has boosted not only the morale, but the ability for us to do all the work that we have to do. In addition to that, we have expanded. We had an intimate partner violence intervention program, which was started a number of years ago. It was working in Kingston. It was highly effective in that it reduced the amount of recidivism of people who had domestic violence incidents. So we looked at that because of the effectiveness, we wanted to expand it. So even though we have COVID and even though we have understaffed, we have expanded that program to from Kingston now to Saugerties, soon to be town of Ulster, soon to be New Paltz, soon to be the county sheriff's department will all undertake that. And the concept there is focused deterrence and detention, trying to reduce recidivism and prevent or deter people from continuing to act in that way. And it's a hierarchy of prosecution, so that we give initial notice. I actually provide what is called B-level notifications, where I will go in to somebody who's created a couple of infractions and explain to them directly how, 1, we want you to stop, 2, we'll provide services, 3, we'll get you whatever help you need, and 4, if you continue on this path, we're going to take this, whatever you do next, very seriously, and punishment will happen. So that has been an effective deterrent to domestic violence in our county. We're going to try and make it countywide. I'm very proud of that. We actually have gotten a $500,000 grant from the Department of Justice to support this program and to expand it. And so that's part of the work that we're involved in. In addition to that, we've established a restorative justice program. It's been approved by the county. We work with the probation department and with the family of Woodstock to do restorative justice approaches to criminal cases, so that the target area, as we set it up, and it's called Restorative Ulster, and I created the program with the cooperation of the county. And what we do is we refer cases. It targets right now at-risk youth or people under the age of 26. And so we want to try and use the restorative justice approach, both to reach out to these people, to get them to understand if they've done some harm, the consequence of that harm to their victims or to the community, and then to move them in the right direction. Right now, we've done mostly low-level crimes, and it's had tremendously successful effects, both on the victims and on the perpetrators. And I'm really happy with the fact that I've gotten wonderful responses from the victims who have gone through the process, saying how much it helped them resolve and get through the trauma that they've been involved in. And so it's a plus on both sides, because it helps the victim. It's victim-centered. We don't do it unless the victim understands the program and agrees to do it. That's a starting place. If that doesn't happen, the case doesn't get referred to the restorative justice program. So that's been in place for a little less than a year right now. And actually, I'm on a little high. I met with Tish James, our Attorney General, today here at the Restorative Justice Center in Kingston, and we're talking about this program. And she was also praising us for the work that we're doing, the work that this county is doing on all levels. We are collaborating with the sheriff on a lot of work that's being done. We have an AVERT program, which is, once again, a focused deterrence program that's just starting up. The sheriff is leading it. My office is working with them. And once again, that's to reach out to the at-risk youth that are out there, identify them, offer services, have contact with them, have notification with them, so that they have some support to move in a direction that isn't a negative one. The sheriff also has an Oracle program that we work with also. We have, as you all know, a tremendous drug problem, overdose problem. Fentanyl is the poison that has come into our world that has killed far too many people. And it's such a dangerous drug. And it's so badly managed by the drug dealers, because it is 50 to 100 times more powerful than heroin. And if you add like a fingertip full of fentanyl, it's enough to kill somebody. And it's actually cheaper than the cost of heroin. So drug dealers at times are no doubt willing to throw more fentanyl in than the heroin, which can create a deadly concoction. This office takes that very seriously. So on the one side, we work with Oracle. We try and get people into drug court. We try and get people into treatment. We seek rehabilitation. We seek people who are willing to go through the process of trying to get well. We give them first and second and third chances. At the same time, the major drug traffickers is something that we have focused on. We had actually the first case ever in Ulster County where we prosecuted successfully somebody for manslaughter for killing someone with an overdose drug that contained fentanyl. First time ever in this county. We've also had one case of criminally negligent homicide, which was convicted. Both persons, unfortunately, had to spend a good deal of time in state prison following that. We've also conducted major investigations with the Attorney General's office, and we work most closely with Urgent out of the Sheriff's Office, which is the undercover group that tries to interdict drugs in our county. I am part of the board of Urgent, and we have 2 attorneys assigned as liaisons to that program that work very closely. They have a great relationship. They're having a great deal of success. We're working on both sides of this really difficult issue of how to prevent people from coming into our county with fentanyl and deadly drugs, at the same time trying to help the addicts and not just throwing them in jail and hoping they get out and they learned their lesson. So that's another area. We have reorganized the office. As I said, we're finally fully staffed as of December. We've reorganized the different units in the office, and we've created different management positions to uplift and give other experienced ADAs in the office the chance to both manage and to be part of the decision-making in the office. And that collaborative work that we're doing has gone very well. And the people, as I say, that are doing it are, the best ever. So that's another success that we have going on. So that's an overall view. I don't know if there's questions that are coming up. I'd be happy to answer them. I know there's some questions about bail reform. I will tell you that I was a big proponent of bail reform. And the reason being that, as a public defender for 9 years, I saw too many people who were sitting in jail for 20 and 30 days or 60 days because they couldn't afford $200 or $500 or $1,000 in jail in bail. And so that was a wrong that had to be corrected. The original bail reform law, I did think, went too far. And there were some areas of concern. And I actually did go and speak with the Senate Majority Leader Cousins and with the Assembly Leader Carl Hastie. And as a progressive, I explained some of the issues because we were seeing bad people take advantage of the bail reform. And you might have, initially, burglary wasn't part of it. So we were having people commit burglary after burglary after burglary. And each time they were let go again and they do it again. So that was corrected. So that doesn't happen anymore. If you've got a charge pending and you commit another crime that's a felony, you can be put in jail for that with bail. So they corrected some of the mistakes. Burglary is now a qualifying offense. If you know what that means, qualifying offense means an offense and it contains almost every serious violent crime, but it's an offense for which you can ask for bail or for remand. So they made corrections. I think it's working better. My office essentially doesn't request bail unless we think there is a public safety risk if this person isn't held in jail. And it's a very high bar and a high standard to meet. But if that case exists, then the ADAs in my office will seek to find if there's a legal mechanism for that person to be held on bail or remanded. And that's basically the policy of the office. We're not looking to put anybody in jail awaiting a nonviolent crime. And whatever recourse should happen at the end of that case can wait till the presumption of innocence is no longer there and that person's been found guilty. So.
Thank you so much, Dave, for that wonderful introduction. and bringing us up to date. I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. I remember when the League of Women Voters was a moderator for your candidate forum, back when we did things in person in the Kingston Library, and it was a very well attended event. There were a lot of eyes on you and the discussions being had. And some of our members were even there in the rooms for the recount in the Board of Elections, during all those ballot counts. So to say we've been following you closely is an understatement. And so it's wonderful to hear, theory to practice, where things landed and how things are going. One of the questions that we had come in the chat, Dave, was about obviously how you illustrated to us the backlog of those felony trials. And there was a question about where those people are being held at this time. So I guess those are people who are not in that situation where you're saying you're waiving bail, but the people that are being held, and how long, and is that, is their right to speedy trial concerns there?
Yeah, well, we meet our obligations under the speedy trial by it's called a certificate of compliance, that we've done all the discovery, we are trial ready. So once we complete that process, and some cases there are waivers of speedy trial, but once we've completed that process, then we're not at risk about any speedy trial issues.
But there is no speedy trial.
Okay, thank you so much. If someone has a question, if you want to put it in the chat or just raise your hand, in this way, if you wanted to speak, instead of unmuting, we could just call you out and you can unmute when you're called upon, so that we don't cross over one another.
I have a question.
Okay, Vivi, thank you.
Yeah. I'm a far out person, Dave. And it's finally come into people's consciousness that alcoholism is a not bad behavior, but it's a problem that people have. And I think that we may eventually come to the point where we understand that robbing people, taking people's other possession, that's also a psychological problem that people have. Nothing stirs our ire more than somebody taking something from us. So I understand there's a lot of feeling behind it, but I think it should be considered something that involves some kind of therapy. Have you put your mind to anything like this?
We've put a lot of thought into this, and it's actually an ongoing dialogue. Trauma-informed prosecution includes understanding the trauma that the defendant has gone through. Is it a crime of poverty? Is it a crime of addiction? Is it a crime due to mental illness? All these are factors that we consider when we try and figure out the best resolution of a case. I wish that I could tell you we had better options for persons with mental illness. We're doing a pretty good job right now of offering rehabilitation opportunities for people with addiction. And there's a lot of effort going on at all levels in our county. Mental health is another level that, and as you know, we lost the mental health component of the Westchester Medical Center here in our county, which is ridiculous. So we do consider all of that. And we also ask our defense attorneys to provide us with this information. One of the things that you probably all understand is we can't speak to the defendant. We can't ask them what happened in your background. I look at pre-sentence investigation reports all the time of people who've committed very serious crimes. And almost every one of them has been through a horror show since they were a young child, whether it was neglect or abuse, or parents with addiction, or they were sent to a children's home, or they were sent to a foster home. And you can see the trail of woe that happens to these individuals. So what that teaches me is that we have to be working on this. And I say community justice, we have to be working on this at every level. You can lose people at the age of 12. You can lose people at the age of 14. When they get to us and at the age of 18, 20, 25, and they're doing serious harm or committing serious violent crimes, it's too late. It's too late. And at that point, serious violent crimes is something we take very seriously. And so, and I don't know if I didn't mention this, but we have at least triple the amount of murder cases pending right now in our county that this office has ever had before. And whether that's something that's statewide and countrywide, believe it or not, that violent crime has gone up. It was worse during the 2020 year, but we've just had a couple of recent murders happen in the last few months. And it doesn't make any sense to me, but it is happening. So we are, every one of those takes an investment of 500 to 1,000 hours of time of an ADA. There's a lot of work on our table and we're focusing on that. But absolutely, when a defendant comes to us, we try and look to the background. We try and look if there's a way to rehabilitate. Is the individual willing to be rehabilitated? Is there community support there for that person? Can we get community support there for that person? And is it somebody that we can release back into the public in a way that we don't feel it jeopardizes public safety? All those are considerations that we go through.
Thanks so much. While we're on that subject of the behavioral services support, Mr. Clegg, we have two drug offense questions. The first is, what about drug offenses? Do they go directly to drug court? Are these folks followed after they go back into their community? And then also, based on other similar communities throughout the country, what do you anticipate will be the effect of marijuana legalization? So if you want to take those two separately.
Okay. Well, yeah, drug court is a long-term process. And so that they might be there for well more than a year, depending on what kind of success. And when they're going through that court, they also get community tie-ins with people, whether it be peers or persons who are working to rehabilitate them in different programs. So there is follow-up for the people who go through drug court. And it's really a great program. And Judge Larry Ball, who runs it, does a terrific job. He's very detailed and he's very dedicated to it. And he's also stern. So that combination of compassion, sternness, and dedication has led to a lot of good results. Marijuana, the main concern from law enforcement is on driving. I think that unfortunately over the years, marijuana has been used to put a lot of people in jail. And I'm glad that's no longer happening. I'm glad it's legalized. I support that. The one concern is people who are under the influence of marijuana and drive are no different from the people who are under the influence of alcohol and drive. They can create tremendous harm. So that's the one concern on the side of law enforcement. And on the prosecution side, it's harder to detect. We have breathalyzers and we have blood tests for alcohol that are exacting and scientifically proven. Marijuana is not the same. So they're working on different programs to figure it out. Much of it comes from actually examining the person following the accident, if it happens, who is trained on detecting drug effects and goes through a litany of different behavioral requests to find out if that person is under the influence of marijuana. But it is a problem on the prosecution side in terms of making sure beyond a reasonable doubt that we can prove that the person's under the influence of marijuana. And I think those answers will come. But other than that, I think it's great. I've seen cases where marijuana is being sold here that's laced with fentanyl, that is harming people, that is killing people. The legalization of it makes sure that it's going to be something that is safe. And that's a good starting point.
Thank you so much, Dave. Susan Hirsch has her hand raised. Do you want to unmute yourself, Susan?
The serious crimes that are being committed by youth, would you say most of them are just individuals being bad? Or do we still have a serious gang-related problem in Ulster County?
Some of both there. The serious crimes, the murders that have committed, I'd say 60% of them have some gang involvement, whether or not it was a result of a gang decision or the result of somebody who had been or is currently in a gang. That's out there. And what happens in our county sometimes are there people, and I was talking with Tish James about this, who come up from the Bronx or Brooklyn, and they're connected with the Bloods, or they're connected with some other organization. And so that's out there. And I don't think there's a major gang problem here in Kingston, but those that get involved with it are usually involving selling drugs. And then guns and drugs go together. Some of the crimes we've seen have been between drug dealers, and one drug dealer robbing another drug dealer and using a gun, and somebody gets shot and somebody gets killed. So that's a lot of what's gone on here. And I wish there was an answer. There's too many guns out there, for sure. I mean, there are 12 and 14-year-old young adults with guns. It's a scary thing. And I don't have an answer, but it's scary. And we take possession of guns very seriously. Loaded guns, walking around with a loaded gun, we take it very seriously. And we have, unfortunately, there have been people who've been given a 10-year sentence in state prison as a result of being caught on 3 different occasions with a loaded gun out there in the community. So we try and let people know that this is not an acceptable behavior, that it only leads to violence, it only leads to damage and harm to other human beings. And so once again, we try and take it very seriously on the serious side and send out that message to the degree that we can, that it's going to be taken very seriously. On the other side, we're doing everything we can to reach the at-risk youth with all the programs that we're developing in the county.
Thank you so much, Dave. Sorry, I
There
had
you are.
to refresh my,
It's all right.
my Wi-Fi dropped because that's what everybody's saying. I'm really glad that you brought the weapons up because there were follow-up questions, I think some of which that you addressed, but just to let you know that they were entered into the chat. Are weapons-related crime increasing
Here's a,
as much as it
I'll look
seems?
at it here.
Talk a little bit about weapons, but I don't know if you want to discuss increasing or not. And then the other question, are serious crimes gang-related? Are gangs still a force in the country? So since you're talking about rival drug dealers, maybe you can address those 2 things, the weapons part and the gangs part.
So criminal possession of a weapon second, when you're walking around with a loaded handgun, that's illegal, has a minimum sentence of 3.5 years in jail. One of the things I'd like to do at some point when we can get back into the world of seeing everybody is, spread that word out into the high schools to let people know how serious this charge is. And it's something that, I don't think they realize. You get a gun, okay, there's too many guns out there, as we talked about. Too many kids think flashing a gun is something they need to do or want to do because of whatever. But it's a very serious crime. And we take it seriously, especially when it's connected with other crimes that are going on. And usually that's involving sale of drugs. So the gang involvement, once again, I don't believe there's a major gang problem here in Kingston, but there are gang affiliates here in Kingston. There are gang affiliates who come up from New York City. There are gang and drug traffickers that come up from Paterson, New Jersey. One of the persons we convicted of trafficking fentanyl came from Paterson, New Jersey. He wound up getting 8 years in state prison. One of the person that we convicted of manslaughter for causing an overdose with fentanyl-laced heroin was from Paterson, New Jersey. There are people coming from Springfield, Massachusetts. There are people coming up from Pennsylvania with methamphetamines. The drug involvement here is, it's multifaceted, unfortunately. But we are trying to address it at every level on the serious drug trafficking side. And as I say, I can't give enough credit to Urgent and the County Sheriff's Department for the work that they do. And we partner with them, and they're having a great deal of success.
Great, thank you. Speaking about the gang question, follow-up to that, is there a presence of in the county of Proud Boys or Oath Keepers? Or I am the one who called them gangs. They are organizations unto themselves. But is there a militia presence? And do you know anything about Proud Boys or Oath Keepers in our area?
I don't have any information about local Oath Keepers or Proud Boys. I don't doubt that they are here, as they are probably everywhere. But nothing has come across my desk where I've seen any incident of violence or anything else from that sector.
Okay, there was a question, Dave, when you were talking about looking at trauma-related history for people and how that relates to their situations. And there was a question about TBI, traumatic brain injury. If traumatic brain injury is factored into consideration, or if that's something that's screened for. I'm not sure if that's beyond your scope, or you can address that question.
I'm actually quite familiar with traumatic brain injury, but certainly that would be taken into consideration at multiple levels. Depending on what happened, if somebody has traumatic brain injury, what was their decision-making? Were they impaired in whatever harm they caused in making a decision about what they were doing? That would certainly be taken into consideration. And once again, we hate, and I've had one occasion where I had someone who was schizophrenic, who was also dangerous. And our system doesn't give us a place to put this person. We have a choice of somebody who's dangerous, and I say violently dangerous, can only go to state prison. We don't have a mental institution that would actually treat them and keep them secure at the same time to give us a chance to give them a different choice and give us a different choice. It's something that I know there's a center down in, I think it's Brooklyn or the Bronx, where they're creating a secured facility for people with mental illness who've also committed violent crimes, where they can be both treated and they can be securely held. And we need more of that.
Sir, you mentioned earlier the situation with the mental health with Westchester Medical not supporting mental health in this area. What are the conversations about next steps, if there's any recommendations that you're considering right now?
Well, I mean, I'm supporting, I know the county executive has worked very hard on this issue. And I know that there's an effort. I was with Senator Michelle Hinchy today too. I know that she is working on that issue. We need to put pressure on Westchester Medical Center. It's not acceptable to send people from here who need mental health services to Dutchess County or Westchester County. It's going to be less effective on every level. So we need to lobby and do whatever we can to, and I'm certainly going to be right there with whoever's doing that lobbying work.
Okay, thank you. Different kind of question. How are animal cruelty cases being prioritized and handled at this time?
That's an excellent question. One of our newest hires who just came in to work in November has just taken over as our animal cruelty specialist. She asked for that. We just designated her. She's going to monitor all the cases throughout the county, and any case that it is important that needs a higher level of felony attorney to be involved, she's going to do it. So it's another area that we're prioritizing right now. And we have a person who's
That's
highly
wonderful.
skilled and
All
dedicated.
right, cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Is the jail going to be transitioned to low-income housing, and what would happen to inmates?
I don't think that's on the table. No. From what I've heard, I'm not involved in that decision-making process, but no, you'd have to ask the sheriff about that. But I don't think that's about to happen. I think that there's better places for low-income housing, and we desperately need it, and I'm all in favor of it, but not necessarily at the current law enforcement center.
Okay, so here's a personal curiosity for you. What has been your toughest case so far?
Well, we had a 12-year-old girl that was shot and killed here in Kingston, and I went to the scene of the murder and saw the poor young girl laying there shot in the head, and I decided then I was going to handle that case, which I have, from grand jury to conviction, and those are things that stay with you, and they're difficult. And I see law enforcement has to do it all the time. I've been at 4 different scenes of where murders have taken place. It's a side of this work that's difficult, and not that we have to do it, but it does stay with you.
Wow, that is difficult even just to hear about, Dave. Do you have any recommendations for increasing successful prosecution? Are there resources that you would like to have that you currently do not have? I mean, you did talk about the mental health support. Is there any other resources that you're particularly lobbying for?
The one thing that I've come up with, and of course I've had this dialogue with the county legislature, is that over the years, and I'm not just preaching to the choir, over the years, the office has been underpaid. And that we right now could use some additional, because we have so many very serious violent cases pending. It would be great if we had a load of very experienced DAs to come in and help support the work that we have to do. I've spoken to a number of experienced ADAs who wanted to come work here, and I could not match the salaries that they were already making. And so they didn't accept the job. And so our salaries are low, and they've just improved, and thankfully we're closer. But the county across the river pays their ADAs $30,000 and $40,000 and $50,000 more than we do. So that's something that the county has to think about. And I recognize that it's a collective problem, with the county attorney's office and other attorneys that are in the public sector here. But for us to get experienced, high-level ADAs to come in and do the work, the important work that we have to do right now, it's difficult to get them because of our salary structure.
And, just because we have a really active group here with us this evening, if someone wanted to let their representatives know that that was an issue for them or a lobby, that would be their county legislator that would have the ability to, that's where that budget line is approved, correct?
Yes, that's right. That's right. That would be appreciated. As I say, they're working extremely hard. The work level and the importance of the work we're doing is extremely high. And the public wants us to do the very best possible job we can with every case we have. And we're trying to do that, but it would be helpful if we had a salary structure that allowed people with experience to come in. We've had tremendous success in bringing in people at the lower levels, very bright people coming out of law school. Our new animal specialist came in and accepting a low level of salary, despite the fact she has 25 years of very high level experience in criminal law. So we were very fortunate to get her, but not everybody's willing to do that. And so that's the dilemma that we're facing. We could also use a few other ADAs right now because of the tremendous caseloads. So we'll be asking for these things.
Okay, so we have one more. We might even have another time for maybe one more question after this. Obviously, racism was such a hot topic as during your campaign, and as Cindy mentioned at the beginning, Black Lives Matter still being something that is discussed all the time, hopefully in your chambers, but definitely in our area. How are you accomplishing culture sensitivity to equal treatment versus racism and socioeconomic class statuses?
You know, the beauty of it is that, I don't know if I mentioned this, our office is now more multicultural and more diverse than it's ever been before. We have young people coming in that, and I've been doing civil rights work for 40 plus years, who are more sensitive than I am. I think we have a very high level of sensitivity toward any kind of disproportionality coming out of this office. It's another one of those trauma-informed areas that we deal with and try and be fair about. And so we weigh that very carefully. And we're concerned with not just the public appearance, but what we're doing with each individual, and if there's a way to change the direction of that person's life. And if they're Black, you know, we're sensitive to the fact that they probably came through more trauma than some others.
Okay, that's encouraging to hear. Thank you so much for building that diversity into your team and your staff. Was there anything about your job that you found surprising since your term began?
It's amazing what I'm hearing, love.
I would say,
It's the
you know,
attorney in Ulster County taking questions from voters
somebody's got,
I think that's Louise. Louise Bloomfield, can you mute?
about his office and what it's doing. And I really feel like I should hear this. It's very worthwhile.
Maura, you should be able to mute her
Louise?
from the, if you go, you can mute her
Not
yourself.
this week, but I really
I
love it.
can't actually. I'm
Oh,
trying.
the beauty of Zoom. But, you know, obviously the big thing that I could never anticipate was the effect of the COVID pandemic and how that would get in the way of all the things that we're doing. And it continues to, like in you know, many other occupations, but it's gotten in the way of the work that we do in a meaningful way. And we've tried to overcome it. I actually have been in my office every day since I came into office. I made it a conscious decision not to remote, just to be here. And most of the people in my office have done that for the majority of the time. And part of that is the collaboration that's necessary to do this work effectively. And part of it is that dedication that I see in this office. So that's something I couldn't see coming. And it really has made the job extremely difficult on everybody.
Thanks so much. So, Dave, we have a great group of 40 people here who really care about what's going on in prosecution in Ulster County, who really care and are engaged in our community efforts. Since you have our ears and our audience, what are things that we could do to build equity in our communities? Or what do you do you have any wish list recommendations for people who have time and access that we could help make a difference to what you're trying to accomplish?
You know, we have a lot of community agencies that are working alongside of us, like the Family of Woodstock, supporting those community agencies. We have Samadhi, which I was involved with before I came into office. They were renting out space in the church that I used to be a deacon in over there on Clinton Avenue. You know, they're doing really difficult work. And, you know, the population that they're working with is one that has a lot of difficulties. And the community is coming back on them because of that. And it's like not in my backyard kind of situation over there in Samadhi. At the same time, they're going to take on a snug program, which is going to reach out using peers who have been through the system and reaching out to people, once again, at-risk youth and people who are in the community, maybe with gang involvement and things of that nature. So supporting that kind of community work that's going on with Family Woodstock or Samadhi or the other groups that we have out there, that would be terrific. And because we want to lend support to them in every way we can.
Wonderful. Thank you for that encouragement. And I think those are some really great community resources. Sometimes they need our time, sometimes they need our money, sometimes they need donations. There's lots of different ways to support those organizations that Dave Clegg mentioned. Frank Bryce, do you have a question before we go? You're unmuted, but I'm not sure if that was intentional.
Oh,
Okay. All right, I don't think Frank has a question. So at this time, actually, we will wrap up. Thanks so much to Dave Clegg. Thanks so much to the American University Women. There was a lot of people putting this together, a lot of people sharing tonight's event to people that they're connected to, which was so important. Is Lynn still on? Do you want to, Lynn, just unmute yourself and
Cynthia?
Yes, I want to thank everybody for coming, and thank you, David, for speaking to us tonight. It was very informative. Thank you very much.
Great, great. Thank you, really. Thank you from the heart.
You're welcome. Thank you, Cynthia.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank
and
you. And thank Bibi.
And thank Vivi.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night and stay safe.
Take
Okay,
care.
thank you.
join us Saturday for
Thank
How to
you.
Run for Office, okay? That's my favorite program of the year.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.